Greetings, human anatomy students. So today what I want to do with this video is to show you some of the bones that are available to look at in the lab, so that if you don't have a chance to see them in the lab, you can at least see them via video. So this is specific to a certain part of the lab. Basically the directions say go around the room, find 20 numbered bones, and label what they are. So what I'm going to do in the first part is just kind of show you the bones, highlight some features, and then after that, I will go through and actually talk about the actual answers. So, number one, here's number one. And so you look at that and you're like, what is that? Well, it's the bottom half of a jaw, and it's specifically asking about this, well, this whole thing right here. Number two is this, and it seems to fit right about there rather nicely. Okay, number two. Number three, this is a fairly large bone. Notice this kind of prominent head on there, and then at the bottom, looks like that. Number four is this right here, and notice this little socket right there. Interesting. This seems to fit in that socket quite nicely. Number three does. And then we're specifically asking about this sort of top part right here. So what part is that? Number five looks kind of like that, but what specific part is labeled by that sticker? Number six, what the heck is this thing? Six. Number seven, and if you look at number seven, you'll see this very distinct, almost U shape there. That is an important clue for what this one is, number seven. Number eight is this little guy here. Note it's got this little nub sticking up right there, number eight. Number nine looks like this, and note that the head is nowhere near as prominent as the one we looked at before, but still a fairly hefty size bone. Number 10, this is just one of many of these in the body, and we're just going for a generic term for this one. Number 11 looks like this, and the key feature is there's kind of this circular end to that thing. Number 12, that's a weird one. Okay, not sure what number 12 is. 13 looks like this, kind of a flat end right there. And interestingly, if I take a skull, there's these two little bumps on either side of this hole there, and it seems to fit. I don't know if you can see with my hand, but it kind of fits right in there fairly nicely. So that's kind of interesting. Number 14 is this. Doesn't quite look like that. A little different than that. Number 15. That's weird. Number 16 is this. This is a pretty hefty one. It's got kind of almost a sharp little triangular shape, and it kind of comes to a point right here. Kind of a flat top part here. Number 17 is a pretty long but very skinny, weak little guy right there. That was 17. Number 18 is this weird, I don't know, it's a little smiley face. I don't know. 19 looks like that. Kind of a unique shape there. And then 20 is actually part of the skull. And specifically, you can see the eye socket here. And then this is kind of where your cheek would be right there. It's maybe hard to see in the video, but it'd kind of be right about there. And while I have it, note also that you can see the sinus. If we open this flap, you can see that little air space. That is the frontal sinus right there. Just a little side note. Okay, So now let's talk about the answers. So number one was this jaw. This is the mandible, the lower jawbone right there. Number two, this is the sternum, so right there. So this is the cartilage that goes on to connect to the ribs. Number three, this is the femur, and the femur is, I think it's it is the largest bone in the body, and that really prominent head right there fits inside the hip socket, which is this right here. And so number four, this top part of the hip socket is the ilium. So this part is the ilium, and you can feel that right above your belt line. You should feel that little ilium there. Number five, so this whole thing is part of the hand. These are the metacarpals. So the wrist bones here are the carpals, the metacarpals are the hands, and then here are the phalanges, 1, 2, 3 digits, just like your finger has 1, 2, 3. Can't really see that. 1, 2, 3 digits. 6, this kind of weird one. What is that? That is actually a rib. So this is a rib, and it kind of curls around like that. Number 7, I pointed out this very prominent U shape. This is the ulna. So think U for ulna. And this bone is in line with your pinky in your lower arm. Number 8, this is the axis. It is the second cervical vertebrae. And this little vertical extension is kind of the giveaway that this is the axis. Number 9, this is the humerus, and again, not a very prominent head. If we compare that to the femur, you know, the femur has a very distinct little ball which fits into the socket of your hip. The humerus, not so much, just kind of sits there, and this is why dislocating your shoulder is fairly common. 10, this one is just a generic vertebra. That's all that is. 11, this had that circular end. This is the radius. So this is also in the lower forearm, in your forearm, and the circular head is the clue that that's the radius. 12, what was this thing, this little cap? That's the patella. So that is actually your kneecap right there. And if you feel your kneecap, you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. 13, this is the atlas. And so the atlas is what supports the skull, and these little bumps that I pointed out earlier are the occipital condyles, and the atlas kind of rests just under those occipital condyles and supports the skull, just like Atlas, the Roman, Greek, Titan, I don't know, the dude who held up the earth, Atlas. 14, this whole thing is a foot, and then because this is part of this big collection of bones in the ankles, these would be part of the tarsals. These would be the tarsals, and then the metatarsals, and then the phalanges in your toes. 15 was kind of a weird one. This is the sacrum. So that's at the very base of your vertebral column and kind of just below the belt line, kind of borderline inappropriate. No, so you're still okay touching yourself there at school, but borderline. It's just kind of right in the back there. 16, this is the tibia. So this is in your lower leg, and so that kind of flat part is where the femur connects, like that, and then like that. And you can feel, I kind of point out that kind of triangular shape and that ridge. If you feel your own shin, you should feel that kind of pointy ridge right there as well. And then this guy right here is the fibula. And the fibula is a tiny little skinny bone, very little, very weak, like a fib is a little lie. This weird smiley face, curlicue thing, this is the clavicle. So this sits right here in your upper chest, kind of like that a little bit, but I can't get the camera angle right. And then this one is the scapula. This is your shoulder blade. So on the back of your, right there, you can kind of feel that shoulder blade right there. That's your scapula. And then finally, this part of the skull here is the frontal bone. So there you go. Those are the bones.